All right, so the question today, how can we relate to our past and its fixed, unchangeable nature in a manner that allows us to take the measure of our lessons and apply them to what lies before us? We are those of Monka, and we greet you, my friends, in the love and light of our one Creator, infinite in scope, radiant and magnetic in character, beyond all polarity, distinction, description, and need for any kind of special regard. The sea of creative potential in which you swim, you dip your hands in and greedily drink of that essence that you find permeates all of the environs that surround you. It is our great honor and pleasure to once again join this circle, for we do not come into clear, identifiable recognition very often these days, shall we say, in other contexts. Our very humble blessings we bestow upon you and yours, those participating in this circle, near and far, whether that be through the artifacts of collectivity that you have conjured through technical means, and those finer, more delicate rays of transmission that bind you with all seekers. The circle is concentric, my brothers. It does not simply consist of those isolated mind, body, spirit complexes which fall in front of your gaze in this room. No. The circle expands infinitely into the matrix of space and back through the past and forward into what draws you to the Creator. And you have much support upon which to lean as you work in tandem to create a focus through which our particular message might come into view. And so you do us a great service, much greater than that we bestow upon you. For in each moment that you are able to define a center of your circle, a center that abounds with love, that pulls each of you into a new relation, that redounds outwards and inwards. As we begin to address the very curious inquiry that typifies your question, might we ask a small favor from our long distance away from this planet? We do not participate actively in the veiled third density illusion any longer. Those pains and pleasures are in our memory. So, in some ways, we are intruding a bit, you see. We are bringing in a force, a energy that must seem a bit alien, a bit other than. Now, it is true that there is a band of these concentric circles which we occupy. It is infinitely resonating through the creation, and it is not special, we might point out. For this is the nature of the vibratory medium out of which you build your beingness. But we recognize that the band that occupies your attention is defined by a veil, a obstacle in a way to the full recognition and expression of your totality. Now, this is a salutary obstacle. It forces you in a way that you've chosen to put before yourselves those mirrors that will call most deeply to your innermost beingness, and thereby show in a montage of feeling tones and images and sounds the many facets of that crystal that is our Creator. This is all to say, my friends, that we would not hinder the operation of that mirroring effect, but rather we seek to augment it very slightly. Our words are not so vital to your growth, my friends. They are merely manners in which the concepts take root and begin to elicit desires in forward progression in one's path. But that comes from you, chiefly. And we cannot substitute a fifth density planet's understanding for the pregnancy that third density entails. It is too valuable. It is too irreplaceable. So, please weigh each of our words, and more than our words, our meaning, our vector of seeking that we wish to share with you, and discard any of them that do not resonate, that do not call deep within you. as those friends and helpers in your life ought to. Your path is sacred. It is sacred because it is yours. It is yours because you are the creator. And so, for us to interfere with your path is to interfere with the Creator's unfolding before our eyes. And we may not sully such a all-encompassing, all-embracing song of creation. No, we must pay reverence. And this reverence is best understood in the silence, not in the translations this instrument does his level best to provide. So do us this favor and take responsibility for your seeking, and we will give you our very best. We pause for a moment to hydrate this instrument. I am Monka and shall continue now. We have spoken of this concentric set of circles around a center. This is a way of expressing the breadth of experience in creation, a way to show how each choice, how each idea and thought, and yes, every action redounds to the entire universe's benefit in some crucial but indeterminate way. There is a way in which all of these effects, shall we say, might be understood. Might be interpreted. But that is an exercise that requires a kind of framing condition that you might call a narrative. This narrative is a kind of way to model our Creator in a particular instance, a particular context, such that one can work with it with mind, both rational and intuitive, both deep and waking, and move that creature of mind that partakes of the most dense thoughts, which you call the body, pushes it into action so that lessons can shift this framing and the fruits can be offered to your Creator through the shuttle, shall we say, of the spirit complex. This is a way of creating meaning. It is the primary function of the introduction of spirit into the mind-body complex that creates the third density experience. One must not simply react, but one responds. And in this response, there is a kind of summarization or resonance of a particular band of the Creator's frequency that you identify with and carry with you as a kind of companion, seeking here for love, seeking there to serve, spinning about to survey the lay of the land as you walk the seeker's path, drawn forward by the light that emanates from the threshold of this density, drawn towards it as the leaf towards the sun. And in this experience, one is dealing in a very condensed and short-term mode of mentation and analysis. One is sort of, shall we say, continually orienting and reorienting. Eventually, this companion will not walk with you any longer. She will leave your side and let you move along so that the next helper may present herself and inspire a new striving that will give your feet the added oomph to continue. This is extremely valuable. You may see in this dynamics of learning, of growing, and indeed of that particular quality of growth that traverses the boundaries, the liminal state of transformation in which all magic can be found. The shift of the meaning in life, ever so slightly, or in a we correct this instrument, in a volume of great magnitude. And it is the seeker who learns who he or she truly is that will, in some ways, bear this experience with the most maturity and equanimity, but also the most apparent sacrifice. It is as if, we correct this instrument, it is as if one has labored on a beautiful painting, years of time and sweat and toil put into its expression of the true self within. And then, at the very end, one tosses it upon the bonfire and walks away. Such is the nature of consciousness, my friends. It is ever-changing. And it is such a gift that there is ever any illusion of fixedness, that there is ever any stability to the state of affairs that constitutes your self. That is just as much of a miracle, a mystery, as the reality of infinity and the nature of that infinity as something even capable of being created in the first place. So, this is the story so far, my friends, that you are moving forward. And there are stages of this journey that do not disclose themselves in their particulars until they have been fully traveled through. Many of your kind try very hard indeed, to ignore these moments of shift. And it is often the case that this creates a great deal of catalyst, such that an entity may reorient by encountering a solid obstacle rather than a permeable barrier. And this is all to the better of evolution. There is no shame in being at the vibration you find yourself. This is what we attempted to say at the outset about why your free will in this scenario is so precious to us. It is good to be where you're at. It is good that you have this illusion. And it is marvelous indeed that there are those of you who can see through it to a certain extent. Sometimes in very subtle and indeterminate ways that do not announce themselves with discrete concepts like densities and the barrier between consciousness and unconsciousness. We point this out because when we encourage a particular approach towards appraising your past, we do not mean to single you out as doing something superior to your brothers and sisters on this planet. You are not doing anything different. You are simply going with the flow and resisting less. It is the absence of action and the allowing of past experience to simmer the dross of detail falling to the bottom, and the cream of essence rising to the top, to be skimmed, collected, and at some point of your choosing, my friends, tasted. The flavor will give you an idea of what past experiences were truly attempting to get through that hard noggin, as this instrument would say, and show you that all is truly well, that there is no danger, that you can let those pieces of yourself that served you well in the past, but no longer play that role in your mind, body, spirit complex. Go. You may release them. And indeed, transformation is tied up in this releasing. For one must create space for the new, for the unknown. Otherwise, it does not gel. It does not give one the expansive view of opportunity. The opportunities that lie before you will not be seen with clear vision, my brother. You bring a jaundiced eye to the future and rose-colored glasses that, though they may make room for a new interpretation, cannot simply start from scratch. Not fully. By attempting to determine the essence of the experiences to date, one is in truth attempting to build a foundation for the new out of the material one has traversed. Which is why it is so important to think deeply about those parts of your past that have made an impression upon the clay of your mind. For this clay will be used to build the tower, the monument, the statue, whose eventual form will mirror back to you what you are destined to become. And we use the word destiny, my friends, with some advisement, for we are not attempting to undermine the concept of free will. We are simply pointing out a portion of the nature of experience and catalysis. They do not happen randomly. Whatever is novel and tasty on the table before you, it is not enjoyed without some reference to those past meals. And so, it is important that those past opportunities, many of which will not have been fully appreciated, be afforded a second look. Now, many prosecute this second look as a kind of haunting. One is often assaulted, seemingly, by one's past missteps, mistakes, the emotional depths of despair, discouragement, embarrassment, outrage. Emotions that are difficult to work with in the moment are often difficult in the future as well. The difficulty of working with them is in their composite nature, my friends. They have not been unraveled, these knots of the heart, but instead fester and linger. If you could simply obliterate your memory and cut them out, you would do the most harm of all. For this is a single thread, and it is your task to tenderly and carefully untie it, smooth and straighten it, recognizing each kink in the line, and that because time mediated its emergence, only time can facilitate its recession into non-existence, leaving the wake of that which we in the past have called out as memory, the inverse of catalysis, the essence of the lesson hidden in details remembered, or vague odors on the wind that call back to earlier days. You may, in your quiet moments, best appreciate these heavy lessons from the past. Carefully working with the energy body to recognize where the blockage might lie. We play a game here, my friends, we call it blockage. We describe it as assaulting and haunting. But all we attempt in these pejorative descriptions is to relate truthfully to you in a way that you might understand, since you do have the veil in place. And for us to simply preach to you about perfection and love and light might inspire you forward. But would it inspire you backwards? Would it inspire you to turn your back on what lies ahead and take a moment to honor where you have been? Those past selves that stand in the shadows and do not wish to step into the dim light of one's recollection. For you have banished them in some senses. You have decided you would rather be something else. You would rather look forward to new gifts and spurn the gifts that these past selves timidly seek to offer. So, in your moments of meditation, when you are working in a participatory way with your complete complex of mind, of body, and of spirit, you have the wherewithal and invitation to take a step backwards and to coax out of the shadows those past selves who have been so isolated, not lost, certainly not released, but simply blocked out. And it is good to do this work on terms that call to your agency as a conscious seeker. For you front load, so to speak, the effect of catalyst in doing so. Your catalyst is a last resort of consciousness completing its circle and allowing for your energetic essence to issue forth into new experiences. If you can offer yourself a chance to balance past experiences on the reg, as this instrument would say, then catalysts can take on, in some cases, a more nuanced and curious nature. It can begin to seem that other selves whom you encounter in the unfolding map of your life will be drawn to you as teachers, and they can help you dial in, so to speak, the vibrational essence that those past selves are seeking to connect up with. This approach, my friends, is not superior to catalyst taken head on. However, we have spoken as members of a confederation, and we offer from our vantage points clues about efficiency of integration, such that pain is not avoided wholesale, but it may be put to the best use. Through other instruments and other channels, this philosophy has pointed out an aspect of suffering that is apropos here. Because the narrative that you can adopt will allow this pain and discomfort an explanation of belongingness in your complex of energies, or an explanation of wrongness and dislocation. We do not think we skip too far ahead of you, my friends, when we say that an experience of the self and the self's perceived missteps as having a rightness to them, as being beneficial to the overall self that you are seeking to realize, is a preferable means of learning lessons and integrating those lessons such that what no longer serves you may be bid adieu in a respectful and loving manner. The more that you can use past experiences of pain to observe the self in a new light, and thereby other selves in a new light, the more you become a kind of magician who transmutes pain into growth, who transforms past essences into future foundations upon which new growth may be constructed and erected to the heavens. And therefore, in the end, it is not parts of the self that are released to make way for the new. It is instead narratives that are released, rubrics of understanding that are amended, ideas and thoughts that begin to emerge as discrete elements of one's experience and not just a flavor of the past that is all mixed up. One pulls apart these different pieces, respects each one, and then as one integrates it, we correct this instrument, as one integrates each piece into a new concept of the self, one gives oneself a blank page upon which to write the new story. And then the old stories can live happily in past chapters. They do not need to be ripped out and burned, per se, but simply relocated to a different volume. Now, this does mean that some concept of one's identity will feel as if it were sacrificed and destroyed. And this is where your most crucial decisions are located, my friends. Therefore, give yourself the best go of it, so to speak, and appraise this literary device on terms in which you are bringing the best that you have access to bear on the issue. Meditation is a beginning for this. But the goal, my friends, is not to be a silent monk praying all the days through, but to bring that prayerful mindset, that meditative resonance into more and more of your waking experiences, such that one dances with the shifting viewpoints that one learns to embrace without feeling as if the self is not, will you correct this instrument? Without feeling as if the self is annihilated each time. The past teaches one, the very concept of the past teaches one, that there is a self that is alien. The ability to shift perspectives teaches one that one is surrounded by aliens in an unknowable universe, and that only through stitching these pieces back together through love, through the gravity of defining a center around which the various composite pieces can be decoupled and find a new orbit, does one keep that self that is most pure, that self that one carries forward into new incarnations, and that holds the thread throughout the eons of past evolution. For whatever haunts you in your waking memory, my friends, it is but a small, infinitesimal slice of the total self, the massive amount of experiences that have brought you to this place. And thereby, one must realize the vast majority of one's past has been embraced. It has been accepted. And it has been balanced. And what is in front of you to do in the future is not overwhelming. it is a small percentage of what one has already accomplished. For you are all masters to have gotten to third density at all. Whether that is an incarnation as a wanderer or as a graduate of the earlier densities. Either way, one brings to bear a great deal of wisdom that one can begin to appreciate in one's stiller moments, when the identity of the yellow ray matrix can have its grip loosened just a bit, so that a sevenfold self comes to view slowly but distinctly. And this is how we would recommend approaching your future, as a breath of fresh air into a cavern of mystery, with the self listening to us at this moment constituting but a single child at the mouth of the cave. It seems scary, but it's also quite an honor, is it not, my friends, to be so vast in one's potential, to be so enormous in what one has accomplished, and therefore taking that step forward into the new mystery is not so daunting and overwhelming. It is a recapitulation of what one has already learned, but with new characters, a new storyline that represents the same morality tale from ages past. We are those of Monka. At this time, we would pause, take the measure of our words to date, and offer you a moment to reflect and provide any queries or comments as we seek to expand this conversation. We are those of Monka.
Monka, I have a question. The question is about the concentric circles you were describing early. You had made a statement of something like there is a mirror. What is the relationship of that mirror and those concentric circles? And can the concentric circles turn in on itself?
We are those of Monka and are aware at this time of your question, my brother. Yes, the idea of circles radiating out, much as ripples from a stone piercing the surface tension of a pond, is designed to express the sheer scope of consciousness, so that distance becomes a traversable medium, and reflections can be understood regardless of whether they seem to be up close or distant. In this way, one has a narrative, a model of unity. Now, the better vision of this model might be one of a solar system, where a gravity source pulls elements into a long-running, falling orbit. Orbits are not eternal, my brother. They are finite. And eventually, love pulls what the original thought has scattered back into unity. The path of the orbiting planet, so to speak, is a way of, shall we say, dilating this grand overarching narrative so that sub-narratives, subplots may come into view and distill facets of the Creator worthy of isolation in vision, which we label with the term focus. So mirroring is a relative phenomenon. And we have spoken in the past of the way in which mirroring does not simply happen as a phenomenon occurring outside of the mind-body-spirit complex. No, for the characteristic of such a center of gravitational love is that it is infinitely small and infinitely large. In its concentricity, so to speak, you see its expansiveness into the infinite void, the plenum of potential reached out to and pulled in. But the point of the center will always be further and further inward. And so there is a great expanse of mirroring to be done within as well. It is as if the sun was itself a system of concentric spheres, each of which can be plumbed, and each of which mirrors back. This is a concept we shared when we spoke of the ability for catalysis to be mediated by and other self, with or without that self's conscious participation. For it is the case that there is a center and an orbiting entity in that relation. It is the model of relation that we of Monka most relate to and have attempted to impress upon this circle before. Mirroring without and mirroring within. Two ways of relating to the particularity of separation that emerges from this illusion, such that your surmising has correctness to it. Yes, the center will eventually become simply the site of oneness in this model. But that is a long-running affair, my brother. Where are you in the rings around the center? Where are you in the rings that constitute that center? That location has something to do with the frequency band at which you are experiencing that sublime quality that denotes creation itself. Awareness. That awareness has a locus is something of a mystery, something of an illusion, and yet it is useful in that it allows for one to occupy a position in the expansion and contraction that typifies the octaval nature of evolution. Growth of awareness through the frequencies, one building upon another, such that at the end, one has fully embraced everything that has occurred, every self that one has been. And one offers it on a silver platter, shall we say, to the mystery that one learns to return to. Does this in any way begin to answer your question, my brother? We are those of Monka.
Monka, it was a very profound exercise and knowledge of the love and light. Thank you. That does answer my question.
We are pleased that we have been able to bring some clarity to the clumsy models and visions that we haunt this instrument with. And he is grateful as well. We are those of Monka. Are there any other questions at this time?
I have a question, Monka. Would you speak with regard to the significance of painful experiences when moving from the past into the future?
Yes, my brother, we are those of Monka and are aware of the question in your heart. This instrument is somewhat used to fourth density contacts from those of hatan and latos in dealing with the pure affect that pain entails. And at our level, we of Monka have a more enlightened or integrated view of these things. We speak of these two levels of consciousness, both fourth and fifth density perspectives, to demonstrate, in a way, the faculty that you, my brother, may bring to bear upon this seemingly unfathomable problem for those of the Confederation recognize well this quality of pain that this instrument has encountered in the past. And that is, whatever one might say about pain that is negative and undesirable, it has the quality of not releasing one's attention. And in the case, my brother, where pain is located in one's orbit and introduces itself at the party as a friend, one has the promise of healing always at hand. Now, the purpose of focusing one's attention is to help one bring into integration something that has escaped and eluded the reconfiguration of self. It is a kind of stone one is dragging along. One wishes not to deal with the enormity of this ossified experience. It is safer, is it not, when it is static and hard, and at least it will not come upon one as a mighty wind, but instead can be recognized and anticipated when it emerges as a barrier to forward progress. We would ask that you consider that pain is not the problem which it appears to be for third density entities. It is the lack of acceptance of the pain that does the most harm, so to speak. For sometimes, my brother, growth hurts. One experiences pain in one's young years as the bones protrude out and exceed one's ability to calmly integrate new conditions of self. This does not mean that there's anything wrong, does it? It simply means that one is transforming, and it is hard to accept the mystery of what lies ahead with the old ideas. Our suggestion, and we give it with some trepidation, for it is truly not our role to be ordering our brothers and sisters about, you must see. Nevertheless, we offer this in love and in deep respect, knowing that you will do with it as you will, with no loyalty to our social memory complex. This pain presents a target of opportunity in the landscape of the self, my brother, because it arrests one's attention, pulls it to itself. Cooperating with this drawing into the source of pain will often mitigate much of the suffering that is what one dreads in the pain. If one feels that the pain is normal and simply a feature of one's life and progress, it is much, much easier to bear. This is seen in fourth density as the opening of selves to other selves in totality, so that experiences are fully shared and traded about. There is a kind of redistribution of pain, such that no one entity has to bear the full amount of it. And therefore, there is no challenge that is unbearable. This is the experience we graduated out of, such that we can have such a open and loving view of what many in your density see as a millstone. So we ask that you consider the strategy, so to speak, of feeling into the pain, of placing your finger directly upon the wound and pressing. This is a kind of instinct that many have, my brother, that allows them to work with that which is hurtful, to appreciate that which drums itself into the self, such that one can learn to become a friend with it and to appreciate, especially in those pains that linger in the past, the truly past nature of the pain's proximate source. It is not separate from you, my brother, but it is in a different relationship to you, is it not? And the pain, in some ways, is seen as wrong because one does not want to have that new relationship to what sourced that pain. Therefore, give yourself the opportunity to at least consider a new relationship. It must not be sprinted into. There is no time bounding. But again, we feel ourselves a broken record sometimes, we of this confederation. But meditation is the first step towards providing yourself with the space to consider, to simply consider new vantage points on old, tired aspects of the self. And in this way, one learns not to avoid that which is painful, and not to indulge in it either, but instead to work with it rhythmically, to integrate it into the vibration of one's conscious path forward. And with this skill learned, one graduates, shall we say, to a level of skill with that which is painful so that it can be fruitfully and safely shared with others. And then, my brother, the most painful part of pain, the loneliness of it, will cease. Does this provide some explanation, my brother?
Thank you for speaking on this. Yes.
We are those of Monka. We feel the energy dwindling, my brothers. Is there a final question before we bid you farewell?
Monka, I have one last question. Is there anything that we can do for this instrument or this circle to enhance or make a better connection in the future?
I am Monka. I am aware of your question, my brother. I am so grateful that you have asked this, for it is not our place to volunteer the pattern that you discover in how your circle orbits the center it discovers. This is your task, your prerogative. We would say that the most crucial way to come into a more harmonious communion with your brothers and sisters from higher densities, who after all are you, just like you and literally you, is to begin to form a relationship on a more ongoing basis. We correct this instrument. By this, my brother, we do not mean more frequent contact with us in this circle, though that is also not unadvisable either. It is simply a matter for you to work out in the details of workaday third density life, and not the greatest thing you can work towards. But reach out to us in your meditations. If you meditate seldom, consider attempting a daily meditation or several meditations during the day of an attenuated duration. Remembering your center and the center that you are building with your brothers and sisters. This is how it works. We wait for you to call. This is how you know, in a way, that we bear you no, shall we say, ill will. For we do not seek to intrude. We do not seek to dominate. There are those who do, my brother. This is their way of expressing the Creator to you. And they may also be called upon through express means or through the inability to forgive and integrate one's own self in one's work. But meditation is such a balm for this confusion, this particular confusion we have described, that we feel you need not worry about that in individual meditation. Instead, we suggest a way in which you can consciously avail yourselves of the opportunity to call upon your higher self, both the direct higher self that you each have access to in meditation with careful work in concentration and unblocking of energy centers, and those selves that simply happen to be at a higher density than you and who seek to work with you in a very nuanced and subtle manner. This work is happening often in the shall we say, camouflage calling that the undulation of consciousness always entails. And so all you would be doing is giving this thing that is already occurring more of your attention, more of your focus, and investing it with desire. You are yoking your wagon to a great steed when you do this. And this will open up new ways of thinking and help you write new stories of self that expose opportunities. And then you need not those of Planet Monka to point them out. They will disclose themselves to you on their own terms, and you may be ready to behold them. Have we satisfied your curiosity in this matter, my brother? We are those of Monka.
Yes, Monka, thank you.
We thank you as we thank each in this circle as those of Monka. We have enjoyed this, for we offer to this instrument a clue about how contact with each of the complexes in this confederation works. It is not that we will give this instrument clear signs ahead of time. Indeed, this would not be useful in this instrument's progression towards greater instrumentality for the Creator's purposes. And we advise this instrument to release the grip on certainty quite a bit more so that we may have a more fluid relationship with Him and all of you, those in this circle and those in the outer bands who may encounter the material we have shared with you today on their own paths. And in this way, all of you may continue to relate this vibration that you have gone to some trouble to bring through. And you may be assured that you are leaving a trail of breadcrumbs for your other selves that will not lead them in any way astray. This is not a suggestion designed to correct your trajectory, my friends, but to bring into stark relief what you have been able to accomplish as brothers and sisters locked arm in arm with each other. This is, in some ways, the pattern that will redound throughout the history of this planet. And it is not a pattern that you alone evince, but it is one that you augment and sympathetically resonate with, such that the glory of the new age, the birth of Gaia into fourth density, is not something that needs a harbinger or a vanguard, but instead will simply become obvious to each mind-body-spirit complex as the yellow ray matrix continues to wobble and cause such dislocation, such chaos, and such opportunity for letting go of what one thinks one is. We are so very gratified to have made this contact with you today. Thank you all for your warm, caring, supportive energies. You think of it as participation in a circle, and this is useful, a good model. But my friends, what we attempted to express in the concentric circles is that it is so very much more. And it is, in some ways, a blessing that you cannot behold it directly. For you might get a big head, as this instrument would say. And it is good to serve with humility. Cultivate this humility in each other and share from the heart. And the calling you have started will draw more and more of the Creator's love and light and allow it to be refracted by the crystal that emerges from the work you do. And in this vision we paint, perhaps you see some of our deep admiration for what you have been able to accomplish to date. We are those of Monka. We now take our leave of this circle in the love and light of our one infinite Creator. Adonai, Adonai Vasu Barakas.